Hello and welcome to the podcast, The Other Woman and the Wife, where we discuss why infidelity exists and what we can learn from it. Today, I am in the studio with Anne-Marie, and we are going to be providing you guys an update on Gangster Gate. And if you don't know what Gangster Gate is, I will give you a quick little synopsis about what happened to my business, our business really, because I don't think that this business really belongs to me anymore. It kind of belongs to the people affected by infidelity that also participated in infidelity. But what happened back in, what month was that, Anne-Marie? Was it January?
January.
Yeah. Oh, that life-changing day in January when I woke up to a text message from somebody that said, "Have you seen this?" And it was a website that was taking pictures of community members in my private community and exposing them, like ultimately doxing them. So sharing their images without their consent, sharing their stories without their consent, sharing their locations without their consent. Lots of illegal activities that were happening with the intent of getting the people who said yes to my business to sue me. Like, ultimately, that was their end goal. And their end goal kind of flipped on its fucking axis because they basically put themselves in a position to be sued by me. So now we are in the legal, the legal, not even battle, I want to say, but a transactional relationship that involves a bunch of middlemen to try to attain justice. Like, I really don't think that justice could be attained by a court system. But ultimately, it was very damaging, I think, to the women who were targeted. And I can't imagine that it produced anything of value for them other than maybe entertainment value of making other people feel uncomfortable. Which is kind of what I do. So, but I don't do it by breaking the law or stepping on other people's toes as far as telling a truth that isn't mine. It's fucking weird. But how do I start this?
Yeah. So the experience on my end as a community member was just not having access to the community that I was used to checking in on.
Oh yeah, we shut it down immediately.
Yeah, I got shut down immediately. And then I was immediately relieved that my husband was aware that I was part of the community. So I didn't have any stress or concern because I was like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but no blackmail can really come my way.
Right? The misconception of the community, I think, is that people who are engaged in the community are looking for people to support their affair. And it's like, we're actually in the community to support the individuals in making their next decision. Because I don't think that I have the ability to uphold an affair, actually. The only people who have the ability to uphold an affair are the two people participating inside the affair.
And I mean, I've seen many women, and I've done this as well. It's where my brain would be spiraling on maybe wanting to message my old affair partner, wanting to reach out and have some question answered. And then instead, I pull up the app, and usually there's somebody else who's trying to avoid doing this thing. And then we just talk about it in the community. And it turns out I really just need to talk about it. I don't need to talk about it with that person. But when there's nobody else involved, you oftentimes find yourself continually wanting to reach out to that person. But it changes once you're in the community. So for me, the only discomfort was having like a week where I was just like, I hope everyone's okay. And
yeah, everyone is okay. So that is the good part of it. I don't know how the perpetrators are, the gangsters, but I really don't have any concern for them. I'm sure that they can take care of themselves if they figure out how to. Not my responsibility. But also, you saying that is really interesting for me to hear because for a while I was really concerned about whether the intent that I had would have the impact that I wanted. And you validating that, because I thought whenever I like envisioned this business, I was like, what if it's the relationship with your device that kind of needs a little bit of twerking? And so if you are connected to your AP through your device and you all of a sudden have a new avenue to go down for that connection, maybe it will help you understand how to redirect your attention and your energy back to yourself. And I think that is like the kind of the impact that I wanted to have with the community, was opening up space for people to talk openly about what they are experiencing without anybody coming to the table and telling them how bad they were. I don't think that that is effective in getting anyone to change behavior by reminding them of how bad the consequences are or how bleak the outcome is. Like all of that, I think that gets in the way of your ability to move. And I really wanted to be the force that kind of stood in the way of that and said, no, wait, hold on. I've thought about this for a decade. Let's chat. Because personal responsibility is a learning curve. It's a learning curve. And I think that I'm kind of always on it. I'm never looking for a point of arrival in my life. Like I'm kind of just looking to enjoy the ride and learn what I can from the experiences that present themselves while remaining aligned with who I want to be in the world. And so I just love hearing that from you because it makes me feel like I am having the impact that I want to have in the world.
I think that you are. And I know I'm not the only one, because sometimes women literally will come in and that'll be the post. It'll be like, I'm having a bad day and I need encouragement. Anybody want to help me out? And there's almost always somebody else that'll pop up and be like, you're doing a good job, or just stay on the path, or do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, having someone to talk to, I think, is kind of the thing that moves you to be able to make decisions that are for you.
Yeah. And I think that the gangsters' intent of trying to get the community to sue you, they really didn't spend much time in the community getting a pulse on the community, because that's not the energy in there.
Well, it's really funny because they did spend a long time. They just spent a long time thinking about how they felt about it, not necessarily what other people were experiencing. The idea that the only people who are self-centered are people who cheat, I think is so fucking corrupt. It's like, no, part of the reason they're so stuck is because they're so concerned with how everybody else is going to deal with this information of them being unhappy. And so, yeah, the gangsters didn't have it accurate. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
I think one of my favorite stories from that day, though, that people definitely don't know about, I think I told you about it yesterday, but it was all of the people who came around me to support me and check in with me were amazing, because it wasn't just a, hey, are you okay? It was a, hey, you're going to be fine. We're going to get through this. And I'm going to get a name. And one of the people who approached me with this type of support was one of my male clients, and he works in military defense. So I really had, I'll say the universe on my side. But whenever that happened, they basically went and they did a full-blown research on the web, and they found evidence of one of the gangsters going and asking a bot for legal advice about the law that they had just broken and how they could get around it. And whenever you look further into the transcript of this article, and I'm not going to share where this article lives, you guys can search for it yourself because I'm not responsible for what anybody else puts onto the internet. But at one point, she asks the lawyer, are you a bot or a real person? And the lawyer comes back with, I am a bot.
It's
It's
that
like,
easy. You just gotta ask
keep
them, hey.
yeah, keep talking to your computers. I'm sure it's working out really well for you.
Mm. Well, I think it's not just the universe aligning with you in that, it's also that you're putting positive energy out and people who are actually engaging with you. Yes, that client happened to be there, but it was within his good nature to actually put his energy towards helping you.
Yes, it was. It
And
was. He is
it's what
so
happens when you put it
good-natured.
out.
Ah, I
Mhm.
love that. I never thought about it like that. I love that. I'm trying not to have a lot of animosity whenever I talk about this situation, but it seriously fucking made me go to places where it was like, oh my God, could someone's suicide be the result of my business? And like, I know the systemic cause of suicide is the person who does that action, I think, and doesn't have the skills to ask for help. But at the same time, like, I didn't want to deflect the responsibility that I played. And while it was going on, I remember talking to one of the ladies, and she's, "So, what are you doing right now?" And I was like, "I'm writing down what I'm learning." And so I started to do that. I started to really take down some notes on what I was learning, and I figured I would share them because I feel like even when something bad is happening in your life, you have the opportunity to learn from it. And so I basically I have the ability to choose how I see things. So I could have chosen to like see this total experience as, oh my God, people are out to get me. They'll never be stopped. My business can't exist because of all of the evil in the world. Like I could have totally taken that passive approach. But if I really take the moments to learn from my experience, it's not going to lead me to a passive outcome. It's going to lead me to a determined outcome. Like I am pretty determined to see this business exist, see it thrive, see families thrive as a result of opening up the conversation around infidelity. But yeah, the lessons I learned from the experience were block erratic compulsive users when they follow, unfollow, or communicate aggressively without productivity in the comment section. I used to let people let it out. Like one of the other intentions that I had with developing this TikTok account was to allow people to let off steam. I knew there was value inside of this concept called contact theory. And I've probably talked about it on the podcast before, but contact theory essentially is you are able to expose your actual truth in conversation with people who are not related to the situation at play. So, whenever I thought about creating controversial content that I'll say unintentionally triggered people, it was an opportunity for them to let off steam inside the comment section. So, the betrayed husband could come into my comment section and instead of, telling his wife off, he could tell me off. And I'm fine with it. You can write whatever you want about me on the internet. It doesn't mean that it's true. There's a lot of bullshit on the internet. And I don't want to be someone who is super concerned with negative opinions about me. I'll take a valid opinion about me, but to sit there and take a stranger's comment on the internet to heart when they haven't had the opportunity to have an actual relationship with me. There was definitely some boundary setting, understanding on my own part that had to develop over time, which is why I think those early days during content creation were so necessary for me because then I was asking questions like, what would make someone say that? And being able to drum up the ability to empathize with all perspectives on infidelity, I felt was kind of one of the motivating forces in me developing this business. So the comment section, like allowing people to just kind of steamroll and let out their stuff right there. Like some people can't afford therapy. Why not let them express themselves inside of a comment section? I'm down. Are you down? I can do it without hurting your feelings. Oh, wait, your feelings aren't my responsibility. I think that's where content that moves you is important. And if it moves you to a point where you're so emotionally unwell that you have to break the law, don't watch it. Don't watch it. That is self sabotage behavior. You're not really getting in the way of me. You're getting in the way of you because now instead of spending your time building your own life, you're kind of spending your time tearing your life apart. Like, I think that is self sabotaging behavior. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
I,
wanted to have compassion for everybody. And that's not a realistic want. It's
mm.
just not.
Yeah, not all the people coming to your comment section have the open enough mind to even be helped or communicated to. So, like, the
Yeah.
desire to want to be the soundboard for them is valid. And, like, you have seen it work out, but a vast majority of those people, they're not going to take enough time to really hear what you're saying
Yeah.
because their preconceived judgment of you and your page are like cemented in.
Yeah, totally. And it's all based off of the content that I put onto the internet, which there needs to be a serious conversation with people about what's real and what's not. And yes, my content really is me, but it's not all of me. And having a personal relationship with me might change your opinion of me, but I actually don't have the power to change anybody's opinion. Everybody has that power all in their own right. And I actually trust everybody else to lead their own lives. I don't need to be policing people, but I do need to be protecting my business. And this is where I feel like shifting into the identity of founder, whatever you want to call me. I actually almost put this morning inside of my Slack profile, almost put lead cheat as my title, lead mistress. I don't know. I thought it was funny, but
The
a lot of
head
people,
mistress.
the head mistress. Oh, that's good. But yeah, as I've been shifting into this identity of like business owner and like all of this that I've downplayed for a really long time to myself because I was like, you can't actually be doing this. But is that my voice or is that a bunch of comments that I've read on the internet? What's
Yeah.
real? And getting myself to that place. But these people, they project their own experience onto me. And ultimately, whenever I first started, I thought about why do people post a comment in a public space, anyways? And I think it has a lot to do with wanting to feel heard. I've never gone onto somebody else's content to shit on them on purpose. I don't think I've ever been in that much pain or maybe I have, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to do with pain. But ultimately, I think it is a cry for help. And I didn't want to avert my eyes to their pain because I feel like I could be helpful. Like I could be helpful if they wanted help, but they don't want help. They just want to feel heard. That's it.
We have the example of the trolling to dialogue where you have
Mm.
done it successfully. You have done it successfully with people.
I just,
Unfortunately, the comment
yeah,
section is not going to be a majority.
I guess not. I don't know if you've ever seen the comments on the Jubilee video that I did, but I was like, wow, I really stuck out, didn't I?
I looked a little bit, but not too far. I will
Don't.
say that I've been showing my husband the comments on some of the YouTube stuff, on some of the podcasts. And
Mhm.
I've told him a few I'm like, yeah, the comments that come in on this stuff. And he was like belly laughing at a few things. He was like, now I have to go actually watch that episode because that comment was so fierce. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. The commenters are keyboard warriors for sure.
Keyboard warriors for sure. And then it was like, even whenever I saw commenters being like, well, I'm a therapist and XYZ, I'm like, okay, virtue signaler, put your flag down. Okay. You're not allowed to diagnose people on the internet because you're a therapist. I didn't ask to be seen by you type thing. You are generating a diagnosis based off of something that somebody put onto the internet. Now I'm questioning your credentials. Who
Yeah.
gave you those and who was in authority back then? Because now I just realized that my trust is in a process. But yeah, that was one of the learning lessons was I didn't need to cater to everybody and I needed to really solidify my focus on who it was that this business was looking to help. Because I think at first I saw it as a healing conversation between the betrayed and the betrayer. But now I think it's a healing conversation for people who want healing that have been affected by infidelity. And I need to really be conscientious of the crazies that are out there who are willing to break the law and put people into harm's way that they don't even know. I get it. As I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, but cheaters put people in harm's way all the time. And I'm like, dude, that is without malice or intent. The people who are cheating don't understand why they do it. In the same way that, like, these people, these gangsters, they did do it with malintent. Their malintent, though, was against me, and they started to put other people in harm's way. And that is not what goes down when somebody cheats. Like, when I made the choice to cheat, it was about nobody else except for me. And there was no intent of causing pain. There was no intent of revenge. There just wasn't any malice. And with their actions, there was. And I need to be practicing what I preach when it comes to removing people from your space that are malicious.
I think that it also played into they don't view the women that were involved that did end up getting hurt. They didn't consider them from a human perspective. Like, oh, well, these are cheaters anyways, so it doesn't matter. They didn't care about how many people that they were hurting along the way to try to hurt you because they had already dehumanized the women that were the collateral damage in the situation, right?
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is exactly why the community is built, because the dehumanization of
And
the
it's a compounding effect. Like, you continue to dehumanize these people, they'll never actualize.
yeah.
And
Yep.
it's also really perplexing to me that they would be so against a business that was ultimately intended to provide relief and, I'll say, the ability to learn new life skills for people who have made the choice to cheat. Because when I made the choice to cheat, one of my biggest fears was that I would do it again. I didn't want to be in that pressure cooker of a life anymore. And so, in order for me to prevent it from happening again, I needed to understand why it happened in the first place. In order for other people to feel inspired to learn why they do something, they actually have to talk to other people who have the experience that they don't have yet. And so they're like working against themselves. Whenever I think about, I know who one of the specific individuals is. And right now, I have a lawyer who is working with the hosting site, the host of the site. I don't know shit about technology. Thank God for the people who came into my midst that do. But basically, they had bought burner phones. They had bought burner technology. I don't know what I'm talking about here. They wanted to make sure they were never found out. But they also wanted to make sure these strangers were found out for their life dealings. And I'm just like, what? You can't own up to your own mistakes because this is a mistake you're making right now. You're fucking totally breaking the law. And you want other people to own up to their mistakes? Lead by example, fool. I stood in my own truth. Other people heard my call to action and they were like, yeah, I want to participate in that conversation. Oh, one of the lead conspirators in this whole thing is a woman that I dialogued with privately for like a month, very sincerely interested in her own ability to move herself forward. So basically, I was offering her free coaching, which coaching is not free and it's not cheap. Like it comes at a cost. It comes at my life experience, it comes at cost to my family, all of that. Hello. But she had, I won't say her name because she knows who she is. But even whenever the other woman in her situation was coming to me for counsel, I had no intention of prolonging her affair. I had no intention of stopping her affair either. I had every intention of getting her to a place where she felt emotionally and mentally stable enough to move herself forward in a way that was productive for her and her children. That's it. I'm very interested in the reconciliation of the relationship with yourself. And when she steamrolls in there and reads all of this information that was never intended for her, I'm sure that was a very painful experience for her. She brought it upon herself. Nobody asked her to go in there and read that shit. I certainly, if my husband cheats on me, the last thing I want to see are fucking journal entries from the woman that he cheated with. This is how you perpetuate your own misery. You go and you look for validating evidence of why you're in pain. You don't actually take the time to understand why the pain exists and how you can prevent it from occurring again in the future. Her sights were so set, I think, on the only way that she was going to protect her marriage was by dissolving the connection that she had with this other woman. But she wasn't working towards that goal at all. She was working towards creating more stories inside of her head that would bring her pain. And it just drives me up the fucking wall because this one woman, I even told her when I signed off right before I blocked her, because I knew that she had a fear of me going public with information that she had shared with me privately. And I'm not going to fucking do that. That is not my truth to tell. That's her truth to tell. She chose to share it with me. It's not mine to tell. But I will tell my truth. I have no problem speaking my truth. But I know that she lives in fear of the fact that she shared deeply personal things with me. Then she committed an act against me. And she thinks that I'm going to use that information against her in some public way. And I'm like, I don't care that much about destroying you. I care very much about building my business. And if you threaten my business, then I will take the necessary actions to protect it.
Yeah. And I think that would be a good lead into clearly these gangsters didn't have enough of their own passion projects going on. They clearly had too much time on their hands. That they felt that they had the time and it was necessary to come for what you're building rather than build something opposed to you and see how that does with whatever ideas they're running with as like their moral compasses when they came to do this. And so I would like to talk to you about the struggles of building a controversial business from scratch. Like what you're doing has never really been done. Not that I've seen, anyways. It's never at least reached me on the internet. Building a business around this topic and doing it in a shame-free way.
Yeah. I think at first it was really, really simple to me. I think that the thought had come to me that shame and invalidation of others was perpetuating problems in homes all across the globe. And when I say homes, like, I mean like inside of your body, home, like inside of your head, home. And surely that dysfunction bleeds out onto the children. So I thought that standing in the way of comments that were intended to shame another person was a very clever approach to infidelity content. I had never looked at infidelity content prior to this business. I mean, I consumed infidelity content when Esther Perel started putting stuff out there. I was a hyper consumer of podcasts. I found them to be very quick ways to acquire knowledge that was relevant to the day and age that I live. And it was from people who were living in the day and age that I was also in. So when the idea came to me about creating this, I never saw it as controversial. And maybe that was my biggest mistake, was not being able to anticipate how surface level some people live. And it just didn't make sense to me why people would be opposed to approaching a problem differently than the way that I wanted to, or differently than how it was being approached by others. I felt like a lot of the content was geared around the individual's motive. And if we think about superficiality, I think about the marriage. The marriage exists for image purposes, really. The relationship is another conversation. You can have a marriage that completely lacks an intimate relationship. And what I really wanted to come for were individuals inside of marriages who didn't understand how to function as individuals inside of relationships. And they didn't understand what the purpose of relationships were. So when I got a lot of the like flack for putting my content out there, I was like, oh, what's the big deal? It's true. And then, that kind of steered me into a direction of, is it objectively true or is it subjectively true? And how do I discern the difference between something that is objectively true and something that is subjectively true? Just because it was true for me doesn't make it true for everybody else, type thing. And so I think starting a controversy or a business from scratch is something that I never saw coming in my life. I always saw myself as the type of person who could contribute valuable work to something that was already moving. So if I landed inside of a business that already had brand equity, already had a market segmented out, that already had kind of all these pieces working, I'm a total contributor. I'm like, get me in there. Let's see if we can make this business go better, faster, all these things. And I just didn't think that there were any original ideas out there. And so when this idea came to me, I was really perplexed by if it was that original. And where do original ideas come from? How do people become inspired to do something that's never been done before? And I really, I talked to myself a lot. And there were many nights where I would just lay in the darkness and think, what do I really threaten? Like, I want to understand what everybody is so angry about. And when I got down to it, it felt like I threatened the institution of marriage. And I had to sit with myself in that and be like, is that something that I really want to do? Do I want to threaten the institution of marriage? And as it stands today, absolutely. I also know deep down in me, I have the freedom to change my mind at any point in time. And that gives me a lot of peace, because even though I want this business to exist, ultimately, who's going to determine if this business exists are the people who are playing into it from the other side. And whether they are going to link arms with me on this mission or not, it's not up to me if this business survives. What's up to me is how I show up in this business. And I just think I had it all wrong when I thought you couldn't create something from scratch. I think you can every single day.
If you are the other woman in your relationship and you love this podcast, you would love the Other Women community. The Other Women community is a membership program designed to help other women just like you reclaim their relationship with themselves and heal from their affair. We provide a safe and supportive environment for you to open up and talk about your experiences. We give you the tools and resources you need to grow into an authentic, empowered individual. If you're ready to take the next step in your healing journey, head on over to theotherwomanandthewife.com/community to learn more about the membership and all it has to offer.
I was going to ask if anyone ever told you not to do this business
I
along
kept
the way.
looking for people to tell me not to. I was purposefully seeking them out because, and I'll say people in real life, people on the internet don't fucking count because unless I met you in real time, like we've never actually spent any real time together. That's how I see it. And so I would talk to a lot of people. I was super passionate in the beginning where it was the only thing that I wanted to talk about with people. I was like, oh my God, look at this. Look at how these people are changing their own lives based on a conversation that was introduced through a medium of connection called the internet, which like I went into the throes of what the internet really is. And I was like, why not use it for good? Like it's used for so many other shitty things. Like, why not just a conversation around something that's present? You know?
Mhm. Something that's present and nobody talks about. And
But
thus it just
nobody outright told me no. There were a lot of people who were concerned for my safety and my family's safety. And that one still kind of rubs. And I'll say that the reason that that one kind of rubs is I feel like one of the things that makes my content catch on the way that it does is because I am super relatable. I'm a mom of 3 young children. I am a wife who is married to a man who, I mean, he's fucking funny, dude. Like, he captures my attention quite well. And I am super relatable. I show up on camera and I look like a mess. I get it. But also, I don't have the energy to do that for the rest of my life. I don't think. I don't want to share my life like this for forever. I think that there is a lot of value in things that are sacred. And I think that the way that we spend our time is super sacred. And this is definitely an investment that I'm making into my future. Who doesn't want a life where they can create a business from scratch, do something that changes the world? And I think that you change the world by being the change in the world, allowing yourself to stand in your own truth and letting other people make their opinions about it. Because ultimately, people's opinions is what changes culture.
and if being told not to do it would have spurred you to just do it more.
I feel like when people tell me not to do something, I really have to understand why. Because if there's something that I intrinsically want to do, I will kind of stop at nothing. And I don't think that this is a bad want. I think that I am hyper aware of when needs have to supersede wants. And if somebody had told me not to do it, like I think about people that I really respect. I told my dad about this business, and he's one of, the people that I love dearly. And he had said, is this something that you really want to be known for? Like he had asked me that question. And I was like, you can't know me through what I put onto the internet. Like, you can know what I put onto the internet by looking at what I put onto the internet. But will I be known for the woman who outed herself as for cheating once? Not even for that. What the fuck? Like, for providing a safe space to women who are struggling with domestic violence issues and the ability to understand their own emotional state of being and how to combine logic and emotion into their decisions. Like, yeah, sure, I'll be that girl. Yeah, let me be known for that. But that would be a public persona. That wouldn't be me. And I just think that we get so wrapped up in what other people are going to think that we don't do what we want to do. And so even if somebody had told me no, they would need to get real clear on what it is that they're telling me no. Stan has told me no on like lots of things that I've wanted to do with this business where I'm like, okay, explain to me why. And it usually always has to do with safety. And I'm like, all right, good point. Valid, didn't consider it. Thank you very much for your opinion. I'm not happy about it, but it's a good point and I need to take it into consideration. But I don't think anybody really wanted to tell me no. I think they could tell how passionate I was about it and how much it felt like it meant to me to do this exact business. It wasn't, that I wanted to create a business from scratch. It was that I wanted to meet with people who had had an experience similar to the one that I had and check in on them. Hey, how's it going? You doing all right? I felt like a fucking pressure cooker 10 years ago. Do you? And if you want to talk to me about, you know, the decisions that you're making and all of the complexities of what to do next, whether to disclose, whether, you know, how much to confirm if things are discovered, like all of that. Yeah. Sometimes we do just need somebody who can listen and actually hear us and give us a response that allows us to hear ourselves more clearly.
Yeah. So, to the gangsters, I think it's safe to say that this passion project and business of yours isn't going anywhere.
No, 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 no. I want to see this business thrive. And I want to make sure that I do everything in my power to prevent myself from getting in the way. And when I think about this business years down the road, I think of a collective of people who are interested in helping people who are really capable of speaking compassionately to people who are hurting, and they understand what motivates people to make intrinsic changes that ultimately change their experience in life. That's kind of partly why I did the course first. And now I have the course available, and that course is going to lead into educating coaches on how this business is, shaped to support other people who have experienced an experience rarely talked about. And yeah, I want to see it thrive. And I think lots of other people do too. And it's all dependent, on the market, really.
Yeah, I feel very much like it's kind of a Pandora's box that's been opened up of conversation. The conversation that I originally leaned into it, I thought it would tap out, but it just keeps expanding. It just keeps being
It
like, and this kind of
does.
leads into this, which kind of leads into this, which kind of leads into this. But they're all conversations that we haven't been having because it's too taboo of a subject to bring up with just anybody. Because of if you even bring it up, then people are like, oh, what? Why are you bringing this up?
Why am
It's
I bringing
hard.
this up? Well, let me tell you, nobody fucking brought it up when my parents were cheating on each other, and nobody brought it up when I was cheating on my ex-husband. So, yeah, I'm definitely of the mindset, you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it, And I can tell when I am complaining about something very quickly. And if I'm complaining about the way that infidelity content is impacting the world around me, I have a choice. I can continue complaining or I can do something about it. And I felt like it was very clear to me that, oh, yeah, I could totally do something about it. I don't mind talking to people about their personal stuff that they likely don't have anybody to go to. So, yeah.
Would you say that's why it's most important to you? What about the business would you say is?
Oh, absolutely. The coaching. The coaching really met when I first started talking with the business coach that I have. They were trying to extract out of me what it was that I wanted to do. And the first thing that kept coming up in our conversations was community. They kept asking me about what I did immediately after the affair that led me to a place of being able to think for myself and trust myself. And I really do think it was my surroundings. You become who you are surrounded by type thing. And so first came the community, and that became super important to me. I was in there every single day, just hemming and hawing with the girls. And like, I loved the community calls. Like, those were so profound to me because, like, what do you do on a Valentine's Day when you are unmarried, you're actively in an affair, and you know where the person you love is? Wallow? Nah, not on my time. Like, we're going to go, we're going to get on a call. I will be compassionate. I will hear you. I will validate you. And we're going to talk about what to do next. And I think that that piece was really important at first. And then once I got into the coaching identity, that was really, really profound. There have been calls that I have been on where I have had to excuse myself and open up my door over here and vomit right there, because some of the stories, like, I have not experienced a lot of what I've listened to. And when I think about that person retelling me that experience and their reaction in that moment is nowhere near as volatile as my own, I can just think how numb it must feel to be inside of that experience, tell that story, and have no emotional, they're just completely out of touch with their own emotions. And I think that within the coaching calls, it's very easy to get someone to get in touch with their emotions because it is a safe space. There is somebody who is asking you questions that you've been afraid to even let your head kind of parse through on its own. I think it's easy for our brains whenever they're on this like default mode to just going into storytelling of other people, or even, this total defense mechanism where I don't want to make a decision because the decision sounds too hard and this future sounds really fucking daunting. So I'm going to sit here and think about all the ways that this could have been different had something in the past been different. And when you have somebody else in the room who is aware of that tendency, and you go to say, I'll ask a client the question, I'll say, so what makes you stay inside the relationship today? And they'll respond with, because he. And I feel like that is the number one indicator of I'm a people pleaser and I'm doing nothing about it. Because you're then citing that your participation inside of a relationship is not about you. It is solely about the other person. And I think that's where we pour ourselves out completely. When we look at our purpose on the planet as being for other people, and not just for other people, but for specific people who drain our energy when we are around them. You can totally take responsibility, all of that, yada, yada, yada. But we got to move forward, people. Like, life has a limited timeline. And being able to savor the moment you're in, it's fucking life changing.
I always have been engaging with therapy as like I'm going there to heal from the traumas of my past. And I can tell that I'm like rolling past it because I saw something today and it actually like hit home with me. And it was, you don't go to therapy to heal from your trauma. You go to therapy to learn to accept the joy in your life. Because of like you were saying with the dissociation and the numbing and when you start letting all of the feelings back in, all of the good feelings become overwhelming too, because you've been so numb to everything. And that just, it stuck out to me and I understood it. And I was like, oh, I'm getting to that point where like, yeah, I'm learning how to roll through and flow through all of the emotions and realizing that you have to feel the bad so that you can feel the good. So you have to
And
do
is
that
the
hard
bad
thing.
really that bad? That's the other thing is for a really long time, I felt ashamed over the sadness that I felt. And I'm fucking laughing as I'm saying this. This is so weird. And it's on record. I felt really ashamed for feeling sad over the death of my brother, like beyond the 5-year mark. And I didn't know how to receive an emotion neutrally, to be able to observe, like Christine on TikTok, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. She did this analogy that was really, really good. And she was like, okay, you are not your emotions. And you can look at it in this way of you are the sky and you are experiencing weather. So you are Chelsea and you are experiencing sadness. And that self talk, I think, is really profound because then it's not a I don't want to feel sad. It's a I'm experiencing sadness. And acknowledging that emotion, being able to process why that emotion exists, understanding that it's totally normal for that emotion to exist. And I don't need to rush out of it. I feel like we get into these super suppressed states because we classify emotions as good or bad. And I'm like, what if they're just emotions? And developing the ability to grapple with a emotion that is perceived by the rest of the world as bad, I think is where it's at. So resentment doesn't just go away, right? Like you actually have to get in there and be like, where the fuck did you come from? And why are you here? And why are you causing me to hate my life so much? Because I do think that resentment stems from resentment of self. And that is, I feel like that's our biggest teacher in life.
Oh yeah, I definitely think resentment and the other thing is pretty much I learned when you're judging somebody to reflect back on why you have that judgment on somebody.
I love this.
And when you're in the middle of judging somebody, if you actually step back and are like, "Oh, am I just jealous that that person's doing something that I kind of wish I had the nerve to do?" Oh, okay. They're just living more boldly than me, and actually, I think I'm just a little bit jealous of them. It changes the whole dynamic of the way that you view everything. So if you're fueled by hatred, the gangsters, instead of actually sitting back and going, "Oh, why do I care so much about what this random person on the internet is creating and building?"
That's too deep for them. That's too deep. It's way too
That's
deep.
too much because they got to just keep running with this. Like the hatred is fueling their behavior,
Mhm.
and maybe they could use a coaching session or two.
They totally could. And honestly, I might even let them have no, no,
No.
no, that's the
Mm-mm.
people pleaser in me talking. They can find a different coach.
There's a coach out there for you gangsters. There is.
Oh my God. The fucking gangsters. Oh yeah.
Kind of shifted through too. We kind of
Yeah, we
shifted
started
out of
going
that
into
and
like
into,
emotional understanding.
yeah, which if they had more of, then we wouldn't be having to talk about them at all today.
Dude, I do think that emotional dysregulation is at the core of why the world is so traumatizing because when I think about it, I think it comes down to individual human behavior that results in trauma. Yes, you can also have, I'll say, hardline trauma where something happens, a car accident. It's very physically traumatic. As far as mental or psychological trauma is concerned, though, I think it has everything to do with our expectations of human behavior and how we really don't embrace the fact that humans are completely unpredictable. Nobody could have predicted that I would launch this business, I don't think, founded in human behavior. And so even whenever it comes to what you were saying as far as the emotional understanding piece, yeah, I think that we are taught to suppress our emotions. One of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody will say, I feel guilty. And then somebody responds back with, oh, don't feel that way. I'm like, don't tell other people what to feel. Okay. If we actually just took the time to appreciate, validate, understand what they're feeling, then they might be able to get they might be able to get themselves to a place where they understand their emotions differently. I do think that the pain that is felt by the betrayed is very valid. I'm not looking to invalidate that by validating someone else's pain. Guess what? There's a immense amount of pain and validation to go around the entire world. And if I choose to validate a certain person, then that's on me. And it is not at a cost to you. I have a really hard time understanding why someone is so hard pressed on invalidating somebody else's story if it's through validation that we bring people to life. But yeah.
We talked about a negative of the business, which was the stress of the Gangster Gate. But what about positives? How has it improved your life?
When I drummed up this business, I had quite a bit of resentment towards my stepmom for dying so young, because she died at the age of 59, and I was super pissed about it. And one of the things that I was so pissed about was her request to burn her journals. And one of the last fights that we had before her death, and we ended up not speaking to each other for a few months, was about my desire to work towards reconciliation with my biological mom. I had a very interesting childhood, and there was no peace to be had among the women who took maternal roles in my life at a very young age. It was traumatic, it was violent, it lacked a lot of peace. And I just thought about how differently girls grow up when women can live in harmony with one another. And I thought about how that never came to be for those two women, at least from my perspective. Now, did it take place in their lives? Maybe it did. And my biological mother, me wanting to have a relationship with her as an adult, isn't something that should feel threatening towards my stepmom. And that was something that I wanted to understand better. And through this business, I think that I have. I think that the reason why if we are well intentioned with our time, then we are working towards understanding the world that we live in and making adjustments to it. So before this venture, I had a very negative perspective of women who were betrayed. And my perspective of them was get up, figure your shit out, and make it your priority to make your life a life worth living. And if there is a man who is taking away from that existence for you, and you lack education, you lack money, you lack all these things that are not in your favor, I want to talk to you because that was my mom. And I'm not interested in children having fractured relationships with their children. I'm very interested in parents having secure relationships with their children. But in order for that to come to be, the parents have to be educated on what a secure relationship with their child is. And not only do you have to be educated on it, you have to act on it and model it to other adults in your community. And so I think the good in this business that has been provided to me is that is a outcome that is worthy of my time. And it is an outcome that is achievable for so many women who have not given themselves the time or the space to actually understand it.
Yeah. And I can say one of the biggest ways that like the community and everything you've created has impacted me is I've regained a lot of faith in like positive women friendships, in the support that pours out to each other when you actually get a bunch of women in a room and you're not trying to pretend like you're perfect and everybody's got like it's all out there for everybody. The amount of support and the positivity that has been able to help rebuild my own self-esteem just
Mm.
through being in that space and being connected. And so this negative thing that was driving me in like a negative direction, infidelity, that then led me to this community of women that now are like empowering me to, yeah, you can take on the world. You can do this stuff. You don't need either of them. Like the number one messaging I've been receiving is don't worry about anybody else. Just worry about your relationship with yourself and the relationship with
Mhm.
your kids and what you're doing, and having that reinforcement is something I didn't expect to come from it, but it's something that is definitely like in growth.
Oh, it's a whole fucking vibe in there because I mean, even for me, I will utilize that community for my own, personal quest in my own life. And when the community came to be, it was a whole vortex of, I'll say, female understanding in timelines that were much further along than mine. So even, I feel like there's these matriarch figures inside the community to all of these younger women. And what they're doing is they're sharing the wisdom, they're sharing the knowledge, they're sharing the insight. And the reason that they're doing it, the reason that the women are sharing is because they don't want that for, generations that are behind them. And I think that the generations that are in there that are receiving the information never had the women around them in order to produce this level of understanding. And I think that's really where it's at is that through connection and conversation, you learn, especially if you are genuinely engaged.
Yep.
And when you come into the community, you are already coming with the initiative of, I have genuine interest in engaging this conversation about something that is so important to me in my life. And the relationship with yourself, I think, is most important. But to say that relationships in your life don't matter isn't accurate. Relationships fundamentally change who we are and how we interact with the world in both negative and positive ways. And I just think that with all of the women that are in there, I certainly did not expect it. And the other haunting thing of this business is, and I use the word haunting, I shared earlier that my stepmom had passed away. Before she passed away, she had told me that, and this was like way before she ever got sick or anything. She had told me that if she died, she would haunt me. And I feel like this business is her haunting me with so much insight into things that I didn't understand. I didn't want to live in grief towards her that had animosity in it or hatred or any type of negative shit. And so whenever I started the business, it was kind of interesting because I could finally see how difficult her position really was and how difficult, like, the generations prior to me had it. And kind of going back to that comment you made about judgment, right? Like, when I get to a place where I'm judging people who I believe genuinely love me, then what am I really doing? What do I fear here? And why don't I respect them enough to just lead their own life in whatever way that they want? Like I can be able to eradicate judgment within myself, I think, and attain much loftier goals for myself. But to sit there and to villainize or dehumanize her for her past decision making, which all of her past decisions have culminated into this very moment in my life. I do think that she had a profound impact on it. Is she responsible for my place in life? No, I am. But can I recognize the part that she played? And can I see it as something to be grateful for? Or am I going to sit there in resentment because she left in an untimely way? And untimely according to who? According to me? Like, what type of privilege is speaking in that statement? That I should have received more than I got? Like, I just think that there's much to do about grief and life on earth. And I don't mind using my voice to propel it forward.
Well, I, for one, am grateful that the community exists. The gangsters didn't win out. And as far as if this is your haunting, that's a pretty good haunting.
Oh, it definitely is. It wasn't the haunting I suspected. I'm still waiting for ghosts and shit, but that's not happening. So thank goodness for that, because then I probably would become paranoid. So I guess you get what you need, not what you deserve. But also there was something that I wanted to touch on with you, and it was as far as the passion-driven work. And one of the things that has definitely come to light for me in this business is being able to provide people with opportunities to do passion-driven work. If there is purpose in what you are doing, it's easy to feel very connected to your work and fill up that purpose bucket, I'll say. And one day it was like I have this new chick that started. Her name is Felicia, and I love Felicia. And I had referred to her at some point in conversation as like the executive assistant of the business. And the next day I get into the office and she has her title as executive assistant on her signature line. And she has her logo and all of these links and stuff. Like, I haven't set up my signature on my email. I know how important it was to me whenever I joined new companies to have that status inside of the company and how important that was to me. So when I saw her do it, I was like, oh my God, Kevin, look at this. And I show him and I'm like, how cute. Like, she's taking pride in her work type thing. He said, you didn't give her work. You gave her responsibilities. And responsibilities help people develop a sense of purpose. And that was profound insight that I needed in that moment, because I want to be able to do this for a ton more people. My first job in my career was at a company that I felt passionately connected to. It was this idea of conscious capitalism that had just surfaced. It was one guy who was on a mission to put shoes on kids' feet so that he could have an impact on the way that children were receiving education. And so whenever this happened, it felt serendipitous and very full circle in being able to get people to do some passion-driven work.
Well, I can definitely say the opportunity to work on the podcast has been a positive for me.
Dude, it's been such a positive for the podcast. I'm sure the listeners are stoked. Also, to the gangsters, I really sincerely hope you're not listening. And if you are, use your time more wisely. Consuming my content probably is not in your mental health's best interest, because it turns you into a crazy person. And that is not what my content is intended to do. So if it's having that impact on you, hurry, quick block, or click block. But yeah, also to the gangsters, happy healing, motherfuckers. Happy fucking healing.
In the community, we're still thriving. So there's that
we really
positive.
are.
There
We like
is
gained
that positive.
4 new team members. What else? We gained like 4 new team members. We developed better strategies towards the execution of content. Our coaching program got super well baked and is going to change lots of lives. And what else did we do post Gangster Gate?
All positives. Good things still came from it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else came from it. I mean, other than some legal bills, few life lessons, and change. And I'm cool with it. I hope they are too. I'm sure I'm changing their lives right now. I don't have the power to change anybody's life. Come on. I have the power to inspire you to change your own life. And certainly that is not lost on me. That's a responsibility that I need to really sit with, though. Okay. The end.
I think it's good.
All right.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you've made it this far, you're likely someone who is invested in the journey of being the other woman. We understand that this can be a difficult and complex experience, which is why we offer guided coaching to help you heal and move forward. We encourage you to explore the links in the episode description or visit theotherwomanandthewife.com/coaching to learn more about our exclusive coaching program and apply today. Thank you again for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.